Today on Homeschool Ways podcast, we are talking about something that every parent has to go through and goes through whether they want to or not, and that is the pressure to swing to extremes. And it's just being human. We go from one extreme to another. We love our children so much and we want to get things done. And one minute we're loving and indulgent. And then the next minute we realize our kids are misbehaving. And so we swing to the other extreme. And I found a book that's trying to cover this overcorrection that we keep doing, from the left to the right. I have invited the author to come to the show and talk to us about her book, which is titled Overcorrecting: Parenting in the Middle While the World Shouts in Extremes. And here's a little bit from her book cover. In a culture that constantly pushes us to react, polarize, and double down, we are invited as parents to step back and find a thoughtful, grounded middle. Manu, thank you for coming onto the show. Take it away.
Yes, thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it. My name is Manu. I am the author of Overcorrecting. I am also the founder of Beyond Birth Basics. And, I wrote this book because I've talked to a lot of parents through my business and through my work. And I've noticed the same pattern that many of us are swinging into, where we're trying to avoid mistakes from the previous generation or raise our children differently. And in our haste to do so, we are leading with intentionality. We are getting very wrapped around the axle on what do I say? How do I say this? How do I react to my child? And we've kind of, lost our way from our own intuition as parents. And so I hope this book resonates with with many parents today in modern parenting, and I'm really excited to be on the show to talk about it.
Yeah, so we talk about swinging between extremes. Could you give us some real life examples? Let's talk about reality, real life, some real life examples of overcorrecting that you're seeing today. I've got two children, you've got three. I'm sure we can just look into our own backyard, but from your experience as a coach.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of parents today, they're consuming all of this knowledge on social media, right? All of the TikToks, all of the Instagram articles, so many parenting books out there telling us this is the script, this is how you parent your children. And we try so hard to follow this recipe for parenting. And when we get it wrong, okay, the books all say I have to get down on their level. I have to speak in a low, gentle voice, connect first and oh, it's okay to be upset. Let's talk about, what's going on underneath the surface. And the minute we don't do that as parents, we yell, we snap, etc. We get so hard on ourselves. It's almost like, in my book I talk about the parenting pendulum. So it's almost like you've got your intention over here. I didn't meet my own standards. And so this like wrecking ball comes and it hits the pendulum, right? And it swings all the way back into that reactivity. And that's where we start to yell. That's where we start to threaten. That's where we start to spank. We fall back onto these old patterns that are wired into our nervous systems because we don't know what else to do, right? Our instinct takes over. And then we feel so guilty that we fell back onto our instinct and we were reactive that we overcorrect. And then we're super permissive. Oh, let me buy you some ice cream. Oh, you can do whatever you want, right? And I'm
Mhm.
sure a lot of us are very guilty of that swing because it's just so natural, I think, in today's day and age. So we swing from discipline to no boundaries. We swing from rigid educational schooling to no structure, right? We swing from sleeping in our beds to crying it out back to sleeping in our beds. It's this continuous cycle that we all kind of go through. And the intention is really good. Parents are trying to do better, but we're losing our way and we're trying to fully just get rid of our past in doing so without honoring our past and our roots where we come from.
And why do you think we're so vulnerable to extremes besides human nature? Is there something in our culture today that you think has kind of pushed us into this reactivity?
I do. I think a lot of it has to do with the information highway that we're surrounded by right now, right? We are just, if you think about it, we're kind of in the center of this tornado of information and it's hitting us from all sides. We've got parenting advice coming at us from Instagram. We've got experts coming out and giving us all of this scientific backing, which is great. We've got studies about all of these different sleep training methods, baby-led weaning versus feeding purees. We're reading all of these blogs and it's all presented in this gray space, right? It's this, there's one right way to do this. And I think it's getting to us as parents right now. Um, because algorithms for these influencers reward certainty, right? They reward do this, versus let's tune into our nervous system. Let's figure out what's the best path for me, for my family, for my child.
Yeah, and you're so right because I everybody wants tell me what to do and I'll do it. Give me one, two, three clear steps and I'll do it, and then it doesn't work, and then we panic and we go into the other extreme. It's all about working with the present moment, like you said, right? Every child is different, every situation is different, every family is different. You have to do sometimes maybe not guesswork, but it's like trial and error. This one worked yesterday. Well, it's not going to work today. It worked with this child. It's not going to work with this child. How can we find the middle also? Besides trial and error, how can we find the middle? For us as homeschool parents, we are very much working out of convictions. We have very strong values and we want to act according to a certain set of values. And then when we somehow find ourselves in the middle, it might feel like we're wishy-washy. Okay, so how can we find the middle without feeling wishy-washy?
Oh, this is such a great question, and I think the middle is one of those, it's almost the most intentional place you can be, right? Um, I think the first step is look at your family values. What do you as a family value the most? And the second step is look at the child in front of you, right? So how do your family values fit this child? How does the child fit into the family? Look at both aspects of it. Look at the temperament of the children in front of you. Are they highly sensitive? Are they slow to warm? Are they super easygoing? Because that's also going to um, it's going to influence how you respond to them and how you respond in those really difficult moments, right? And then look at the moment itself. What does this moment require? Does it require connection? Does it require structure? Does it require a little bit of both, like a nice little rhythm, right? And I think especially with homeschooling, it's both a lot of times. We need a good
Yes.
structure and we also need to not forget the connection piece
Right.
with our children. And so when parents are grounded in their values and they are looking at the children in front of them, then we don't have to feel like we have to defend every small decision that we're making to the outside world or even to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, and we talk about correction and connection, and which one comes first. It's always connection. You have to be connected before you can do any kind of correction with the child. We're gonna get back into the show, but I would like to take a moment to remind our listeners that on my blog, homeschoolways.com, I have a lot of free resources for organization. And there's a particular page, homeschoolways.com/organize, where you can go and walk yourself through several questions. There are PDF files you can download for your schedules, for weekly, daily, and even to organize your overall homeschool in like 1 hour. I put enough information there where you can walk yourself through a few exercises and remove the overwhelm and just break it into small bits and get a little bit more organized. I think if the mom is organized, if the educator knows where she's going, then the whole connection to the child can happen a little faster and a little better. So homeschoolways.com/organize. Now, let's talk about fear because as parents, this is like one of the most important feelings we have from the moment we come home from the hospital with a baby. And then this baby grows up and becomes a toddler, and we have to walk them through all the developmental stages. And then education starts, whether at home or in a school somewhere. What role does fear play in overcorrection?
Oh, fear is the biggest driver of overcorrection. It really does. When we are acting out of fear, a lot of times within our bodies, we have different parts, right? That kind of fill our bodies, right? And a lot of times fear is a part, and our protector part comes up to defend against that. And that is what drives a lot of these big reactions that we have. I have to do this correctly. We're bombarded with all these messages from the outside world. If you sleep train, you're going to damage your attachment. If you don't sleep train, you're never going to sleep again in your entire life. If you homeschool, your kids aren't going to be socialized. But if you send them to school, they're going to be influenced by all of the culture out there.
Right.
And fear narrows our thinking because we go down one of these paths and we're like, oh, if I do anything outside of this, then that's going to be an issue, right? When we're
Mm-hmm.
afraid, we parent from control instead of connection. And one of the most helpful questions that a parent can ask themselves is, am I making this decision from fear or am I making this from wisdom?
I like that. So just sort of check with yourself. Am I doing this because I'm scared because so and so said this, or because my mother-in-law said that, or because I heard the specialist, this expert on TV saying that? Or am I doing this because I really know my child and I can see that this is not a good decision. We need to sort of correct where we're at. We feel like we are already outside the mainstream as homeschoolers. And even if you're at home with preschoolers, a lot of moms have to work and there's no judgment here. You have to put your kids in a daycare situation or leave them with grandma or whatever, and the mom has to work. Um, but every decision we make as parents comes with a little bit of judgment from some corner of the universe. And so there's like mainstream and more society pushes moms out of the house, even during the first 5 years of a child's life. Okay. But then we're talking about people who choose to stay home and homeschool their kids. And so there's this feeling of being, I'm outside the mainstream. Um, how does that push us even more into extremes and overcorrecting?
Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, my 4-year-old is at home with us, and I'm preparing him to try to go to kindergarten next year. And, from my own experience and just from what I know about parents, I think it's when you homeschool, you're often carrying this deeper sense of responsibility, which it can be so beautiful. And it can fuel that need for control and that need for getting everything perfectly right all the time, right? Some common swings that I see with some of the parents that I work with who homeschool, right? they try to mimic everything that their kids would be doing at school perfectly at home. They try to recreate a school experience, but at home they don't, they reject all structure entirely. They're like, well, I'm homeschooling and you know, we'll learn through experiences, which is great, and we should learn through experiences, but there should be some structure to the experiences,
Mhm.
right? Um, there's potentially like overprotection of kids sometimes from any outside influences. Um, or a lot of times, and I hate this for homeschool families, but a lot of times there's this pressure to prove to the outside world that homeschooling actually works, right?
Yep.
Because
Yep.
people are like, oh, well, why would you homeschool? And you have to, it feels like we have to um prove ourselves and defend the choice a lot of times. So that's a deep responsibility. And that's a deep, again, judgment from the outside world, right? But in reality, homeschooling, it's not just about curriculum, it's about cultivating curiosity and character, relationships, teaching that culture, being able to explore. And I think what we always, as parents, not always, but what we forget as parents a lot is that kids don't need perfection. They just need our presence. And that's really hard for us to do when we've got this deep sense of responsibility and this deep sense of fear and judgment from the outside world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen it in my own life where, if I get on that bandwagon of I gotta prove myself, I gotta prove this to the world. And if you have, especially in your family or group of friends, certain voices that are critical of your choices, it's very easy to fall in that temptation of I gotta prove and I gotta be perfect. And um, so many times I've had to stop and just say, take a deep breath. I have nothing to prove. This is
Hmm.
about my family making certain choices. These are our kids, and whether they're perfect or not. And for instance, at family gatherings, there used to be a relative who would test my kids with questions. And it's like if my kids had gone to the local public school, this would not happen,
Hmm.
you know. But I think this person is smart enough. She realized what she was doing and she stopped it. But as it was happening, I was gentle. I just kind of smiled. I put up with it. My kid only could provide three of the. She asked for nine types of sharks. You know, like
I couldn't even tell you
quickly.
nine types of.
Nine types of sharks. Please. Like why would you even ask that? You know. But this confrontation happened once or twice and then it didn't happen anymore, but sometimes it happens in our own mind. Like it doesn't have to happen for real. We just feel this pressure. And so I just want our awareness is the first step in becoming better, in making progress emotionally as parents and as homeschool parents. So I just want us to be aware of this. I just want to discuss it and put it on the map for everybody to sort of become aware of, okay, am I trying to prove, am I improving mode right now, or am I just simply being present for my child? Now, there is calm discernment that we need to model for our children in terms of everything, really. But let's talk about these extremes that the world is shouting in. And your book covers them so well. How do we teach our children to think critically, listen well, and respond thoughtfully instead of reacting emotionally? It's like respond versus react.
Yeah. Children are going to learn this through watching us, through watching us as parents regulate ourselves, through watching the adults around them and how they react to specific situations. If the world is shouting at them, the most powerful thing that a parent can do is show their child what a thoughtful reaction can look like. So whether that's, saying out loud, I'm getting frustrated, I'm going to take a couple of deep breaths, and telling your children what's going on for you internally in that moment. If it's, using words like, let's think about a solution together. If it's, um, self-care that a lot of parents try to do and don't always get to, but showing our children, this is how I take care of myself. When kids can grow up to see adults taking care of themselves and their own nervous systems and regulating before reacting, they internalize that idea. And that is the best, most effective way that we can teach our children.
Yes. And that's very practical and that's very good. And so let me dig a little bit deeper. Let's say there's a mom listening right now who's
Hmm.
feeling overwhelmed by all the opinions online. And she's looking for one practical step, one, so because sometimes you just have to sort of take that first step and then your instinct will kick in and take you to the second one that matches your value, your family. But what's one practical first step that a parent can take right now so they can parent from the middle this week?
I would say spend a week journaling. Journal all of your interactions with your child. So I woke up this morning, went downstairs, made breakfast. I have three children. Everybody was asking for different things in that same moment constantly because that's what happens at breakfast time. Reflect on that, later in the day. Journal, how did I feel in that moment? Because I think the most valuable thing we can do as parents is understand our own reactions, understanding our nervous system defaults, so that we can then observe our children and understand their reactions and their nervous system defaults. And then we analyze how do we couple the two, our reactions and their reactions, so that we can all co-regulate better in the house.
I love that. I have a journal and I've noticed, if I tend to do it in the morning when the house is quiet and everybody's asleep. I'm an early riser. It works for me. However, there are mornings when I don't have the time, when we have to go somewhere and it's like different. So in the evening, I take the time to reflect, like you said, and just this happened and I felt like this. You don't just say what happened. You have to reflect a little bit on what, and it doesn't have to take long, and you don't have to write 15 paragraphs, not even one paragraph. Sometimes one sentence will do. And especially for women, if we can articulate what happened and how we feel, sometimes it helps us think exactly through the issues.
Exactly.
Uh, yeah, that's very good. Journaling. Yes, I'm all for that. So as we land the plane, let's ask you one more time, give us your website, the title of your book, and where we can get in touch with you if we needed more help. I know you've got a team and you've got some resources that people can access if they want more support.
Yeah, thank you. So you can find me on www.beyondbirthbasics.com. And you can reach out to me either via my website or my email address, which is my first name, Manu, M-A-N as in Nancy, U, dot Brune, which is my last name, B-R-U-N-E, at beyondbirthbasics.com. And I typically respond within 24 hours to any potential new emails that come through. Um, and I do have a support team as well, and my team is amazing. They mostly work with children aged newborns all the way through 4 or 5, versus I work with families who have children age 0 to 17. So if it is, you are in a situation where you are needing some help with younger children, my team will most likely be more than happy to jump in and help out. I have a newborn care specialist, I have a toddler specialist, I have a mom who has two grown children in their 20s, so she's helpful as well. And then myself. So we are more than happy to, to help with any issues that are coming up, anything from sleep training in those younger years all the way up to behavioral issues with teenagers. and even just parents who want to understand their reactions better and understand, why am I doing what I am doing? I love those types of conversations.
Yeah. Yes, a little bit of reflection goes a long way.
Yes.
Manu, thank you again for coming onto the show, and we will speak with you maybe in a few months or maybe this time next year again to sort of check in and see if our listeners have had questions after they read your book.
Sounds great. Thank you.